Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of the Mystics on a Mission show. I am here with Sarah Drew. Hi, Sarah.
Hello, it's wonderful to be here.
So glad to have you here. So I'm really excited to have Sarah on the show today because she is the author of one of my favorite books. And the book is called the Gaia Codex. So if you're one of my clients or if you're one of my closer friends, you know that I love this book. I discovered it in 2016, read it a couple times. I have a journal that is half full of quotes from the book. And I'm just so excited to be able to talk with her about her inspiration behind the book, what made her write it, because it is unlike anything I've ever read. It is a novel, so it's a very easy read, a very fun read. It's adventurous, it's emotional, it's really beautiful, and at the same time it feels like a wisdom text. It feels like at the end something has shifted. I remember getting goosebumps as I was reading it. It felt very sacred. It's like the same feeling somebody would get when they read the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita or any other type of channel text that touches something so deep within. And to give you a little bit of a glimpse of the book, I prepared for today a section from the book that I love. So close your eyes and get ready to experience the Gaia Codex. When a priestess is truly seated on her throne, she realizes that she carries the throne within her. Our bodies are the temple of our souls. To be seated on the throne is to be well placed inside our own sacred chambers, deeply grounded into the root of Mother Earth, well seated in the center of our belly as we connect to the stars and the sky, and let the goddess's inspiration, her words and actions, flow through us. Thank you, Sarah.
So honored to be here today.
So honored to have you. I am always so curious about people's journeys, and I would love to hear from you. What made you want to write this book? Like, what journey led you there?
Well, first, I just wanted to say that, thank you. It was wonderful to feel the words of the Codex running through your voice, through your body temple. I think that's been so much of my journey and the experience as the book itself is going out into the world. It's like, each one of us holds a piece of the deeper wisdom that's coming forth at this time, that's coming forth through the feminine, that's coming forth through Gaia herself. And for me to experience this text and the women and so many people that are bringing this wisdom through in all these different facets is so powerful. And I feel like I'm always learning too with it, and with like your reading, I'm experiencing something different yet again, and a little bit deeper. My impetus, this was such a calling. This was like the book that my soul needed to write. And, a lot of the threads and inspiration in this particular life and incarnation came, in my early 20s. And, I traveled to many of the spots in the book that our character Lila Sophia goes to. And it was like reconnecting with parts of my ancient lineage, parts of my ancient self. And I studied religious studies at UC Berkeley to just learn more about how different cultures have looked at this. But I also spent time in Tibet studying with teachers, in Bhutan studying with teachers, in India, and down in the Amazon. And finally, there came a time, probably about 10 years ago, where it was like just an ache. It was so I had to write it, or this sounds extreme, or die. It was like the timing in our collective and the culture was coming. So many of these codes, I was instructed in a way to hold them until the right timing. But it was also something that was part of my own soul journey. And it really, in many ways, required a complete surrender into the divine to work with the divine in the creation of this. I really felt like we were co-collaborators.
Wow. I would love to also hear a little bit about the creation process of the book. Like, what did that co-creation exactly look like? Were you channeling? Were you being guided by angels? Like, can you be a little bit more specific and tell us more about that?
Yeah. It's interesting. And I've worked with clients over the years in what we call like the illuminated creation art of visionary writing process. And for me, it's just a place of deep listening and deep presencing, almost in a prayer space. And when I'm writing, it's like I'm going into the world and just I'm transcribing it. It's like I'm a scribe. It's like I'm listening, I'm tasting, I'm hearing, I'm feeling, especially as in this case through the eyes of Lila Sophia, our protagonist. And it would be like I was almost like you could say it was how we might experience a virtual world or in a dream state or a visionary state. And it's just transcribing it down. It would come in words, and parts of it would come, like the prologue came maybe 20 years ago in its completeness, which is kind of the anchor for the book. And then other scenes started to come, and then there was really the constructing of a narrative and more the traditional writing process, where you're looking at making sure that the arc of the story is, we use the heroine's journey. I feel like it's, there's definitely a sense of a we. I don't call it channeling, but my dad taught me there's never writer's block. So it's just about listening. And in my case, every morning I would start out with, prayers to the goddess. It was very much like being in a 3-year sadhana, a retreat. And I was also practicing with my 2 core root teachers, Lama Pema and Rinpoche Sewang, during that period. So I felt like this was part of my retreat. It was meditation and writing and meditation, walking. And I'm a researcher too. For many years, I was just researching. I love reading. I love libraries. And so I researched and traveled to many of these places. So by the time I was ready to write, there was also the data knowledge that had been accumulated, to be able to put in the historical pieces. And sometimes I would go into a place in history and listen, and it would come through, and then I would check to see, okay, how does this fit with what's in the actual historical record? And so there was a lot of cross-referencing.
So I'm hearing that this book was really a long time in the making, the prologue having been written 20 years ago, and then you took 3 years of writing the book and meditating. That is impressive, because I have this part of myself that's like, okay, we got the divine assignment. Can we get it done by tomorrow? Like, can we do this now? Can we? Because it can be so exciting to get these assignments that are so meaningful and so inspiring. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your take on this. And did you experience anything like that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think in my case, there was 2 factors that as I'm looking at it now. One, there was like the alchemy of the soul, my own journey and growing and developing as a embodied woman to be ready to be the vessel for this, which was, many cycles of learning, transmuting of karma, going down certainly into some dark nights of the soul. I had a high-tech company. I had this other life, and worked in this whole other area, which was very exciting, and also had some of its own revelations, soul revelations that came out of that, which I'm happy to speak more to as they're relevant. But I think it was my own soul's readiness as a vessel. And then the secondary part was this particular message is for this time on the planet. So my chronological age right now is 52. So there was, in some sense, if it came through at 20, there was a waiting till this moment, where maybe for you, maybe if you have a message, maybe it is for right now, and maybe, other people that are listening. So I think it's that listening that we can do is like, what is the collective needing? And sometimes it's nurturance and it's waiting to the right moment. And other times it is for right now. And it is, I think right now we are in a very critical, but also potentially potent point in human evolution on the planet. And I think it could go many ways. And I sense the more of us that are here are holding a place of conscious witness / action and presence, I think that gives us the ability to really transform the course of how human history plays out at this time.
So I'm hearing that sometimes things do need to ripen, and we do need to go through our initiations, and we do need to be prepared for our soul assignments. And sometimes it's for right now, and sometimes now is the time to follow through. And we had Rochelle Sheik on the show, and she said something that really stuck with me. She said that in the creative process, that for her, it's been really helpful to engage with the energy of what is calling her. I'm paraphrasing here, but for example, somebody wanted to create a business or got an idea for a book or an idea to create, say, a movement practice, like in her case, that it's really helpful to also sit down and take lots and lots and lots of space to engage with this entity that wants to be birthed through that person. And I'm hearing the same or a similar message in what you are saying. Like, is it for now? Like, is it that this is needed now, or does it need to grow more? Because just like trees have different growth cycles, and some trees grow faster and some trees go slower. It's kind of not up to us to say. Something that I'm personally learning with my own creation processes.
Yeah, it's, I think, trusting the divine timing. And I know I've certainly learned a lot about patience. But then when the messaging or that I would get when it is time, like I had finished the book, and then there was a year of where I got, it wasn't supposed to be actually published yet, but it went around and was being passed around as a manuscript, and to about 100 different key goddess friends, allies, and it was just supposed to be held in circle in prayer with these key women and some men as well who are holding the energy. And it was almost like a underground thing. And then I got, okay, now it's time. And it was like it needs to be published now. And it was very specific. But that year of waiting, I go, is this what you want? And so there's some impatience, but also it was, in retrospect, it was the right thing to do. It allowed it, in this case, to ground deeper into the field, and for the manuscript itself to be held in prayer with those who can approach it and who felt to approach it in that way. So.
Beautiful. What are some lessons you have been fortunate to learn as a result of writing this book?
Oh my goodness. I feel such gratitude. It's just like I feel such gratitude for the honor to be able to serve the mother and be a vessel to bring this work through and have the opportunity to be in communion with so many readers, so many women, and also, as I say, men who are there, who are feeling and awakening the seeds and just igniting their own creative vision for this powerful time on the planet. I just feel gratitude, really, and that it's such an honor, you know.
Wonderful.
Just, yeah.
If somebody were to read your book, what would be your deepest wish in terms of what they would take away from reading it?
It's interesting. There was certainly a seed, like a crystal seed intent when it was being written. And I just want to preface it by saying that I'm continually illuminated and delighted by what readers, what this larger circle of circles of souls bring back through their reflections through the book. I feel like it's an open source code, you know, as we're reading it, and people are bringing back their own deep knowings. But what is common in what was original prayer is that it really awakens our own codes, our own luminous codes within as we're reading it. It gives us connection back, it recast history just a bit so that we can remember our lineage as women and as priestesses. It gives us hope and energy to move forward into the future and create a future that is serves the well-being of all beings on the planet, and that it delights, that there's a remembrance of the magic that we are capable, and it's showing in many ways. Many readers, many women will say, this is what I've always known, but I just haven't had the words to put to it, or it activated my remembrance of what I've always known to be true. And it often seems to give a ground for them to stand on, to really help build their own mission in knowing.
I can definitely relate to that. When I read the book, it was I think I thought and said a couple of times what you just mentioned. I knew this before. Like this girl, Lila Sophia, she is me, and the other protagonists are also me. And I remember, and I always kind of have. I always was. I've always been very hesitant to give myself labels. Like priestess or witch or esoteric hippie person, whatever, or scientist, or it just always felt off except for the term priestess. And I feel so comfortable saying priestess because to me, priestess just encompasses all these things that I've always known to be true. For example, that my natural place is to be living in tune with the earth. Like that's my place. This is where my home is. And my duty is to live in service to all beings. And my sisters and brothers are angels and spirits. And I've always known that to be true. And for many years, I didn't express it because it wasn't relevant. And it was just meant for me. And now I just say it because that's what's true. And the people around me can, understand it better. And so it might be relevant for them, which is why I would share it now. And somehow the word priestess to me, and even when I read Priestesses of Astera, it just stirred something in me because I'm very connected to the priestess lineage of Avalon. I love being in Avalon. It feels so good to be home. And it's that deep feeling of yes, for some reason. And even looking back at my life, thinking about being a little girl running through the woods and, living like Artemis for a day, it was just always in my blood, in my veins. And it's being awakened by different things like reading your book, spending time in nature, talking to other priestesses. But something that I would love to hear from you is, what does being a priestess, or even the word priestess, mean to you?
I feel in its simplicity, it's, for myself personally, it's of being in deep service. It's almost like it's intertwined with me with the bodhisattva vow in some ways, to be in service for all beings. And it's through the lens of the feminine, the awakening feminine, to be a vessel for the many faces of the goddess in this human form. And it's deeply to be in service to our Mother Earth this time, and also holding the knowledge and lineage of the stars, the Astera. That's part of their lineage, from my understanding, is they hold the cosmos, but they also hold the wisdom of us as incarnate beings, intertwined with the beauty and creation and material form of Mother Gaia. I think at this point, it really is, the word is a catalyst for us to take our leadership based on wisdom and compassion and strength and courage into the world. I think we've been hidden for long, there's much that happens behind the veil. And many of us are schooled in doing that. But I think this is a time when we can take and be these different forms, whatever we're called to. And it could be a businesswoman, it could be a mother, it could be a herbalist, or a writer, or artist, or 1,001 forms. The form is not so important, but I think it's the inner intent and the inner vow. And again, for me personally, to really be there to the best of my ability, and it's not perfect every day, but to be there in service for the well-being of all beings.
That really speaks to me, because my intention with creating this podcast, which is called Mystics on a Mission, is to exactly illustrate that, how us conscious mystical beings can express that through so many ways, through writing books, through teaching yoga, through design, music, being spiritual teachers, being whatever we want to be, whether it's a profession, whether it's a hobby, whether it's just us living our lives. And I wonder, have you always been in touch with that priestess part of you, or how is that for you?
Yeah, maybe like you, maybe like many. I mean, it's since I was a young girl, I had this sense, when I was 5 or 6, that this would be a lifetime where we get together with many beings, many people that I adored and loved, and we were going to do something amazing together. This is a child's framing of it. And also as a young child, I felt the goddess. I would have poetry or songs come through, and there would be that shiver, which many years later I was reading The White Goddess by Robert Graves, and he talks about how when the goddess comes through, and when she comes through in poetry, there's a shiver that that there's truth. I spent a lot of time in nature as a child. I still do. We're upstate on 240 acres, and I just came back, and I was just completely there. It was warm enough actually where I could take my top off, and I was just out there in the forest. So that's my adult self. But my young self is very much that creature too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in this life, it's been, I think that's part of what my sharing is. There's been the remembrance since I was young. And my father who's passed, was very, we would talk about the web of life. We would talk about reincarnation through time. We would talk about how our people were not just of this time necessarily. So there was an anchor for that, the gift of the anchor. And I know many of us, it's something that we just keep and we know and we nurture until it's the right time to share. But there, in this particular life, I did have, actually from the masculine side, but that was my anchor to know that was a possibility, was for my father.
Mm. You also mentioned earlier that I think you called it the other life that you've lived. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you meant when you said that?
Oh, just, yeah, I had an arc through, it was a early, in technology in the 90s, I had an early VR gaming company in Los Angeles that I was seeing with Conscious Games, and we were very lucky to get funding for that, and did some early runs at that realm. And I've worked in media creation, and mostly it's tended though for conscious media as well. I was involved in helping put together a database of sacred wisdom at one point, where we were curating from all different traditions. So it's been allied, but it was, I guess, a different life than writing a book, right? It was working with that, but it all seems intertwined.
Yeah, I can see the common threads.
Yeah.
What's a dream you still want to realize, or something you're currently working on?
Well, we are, I'm working with my producing partner, Jane Charles, and we are in development for an episodic television series based on the book. So that is where a lot of our prayers and energy, and she's a wonderful soul. And so, yeah, if the goddess willing, we are preparing so that can be offered out to a wider audience through a, something would be like on a Netflix or HBO or Amazon, and kind of keeping that more quiet and close. I guess where this is public to do that, but that's where a lot of my creative and prayer energy has been with that.
That's exciting. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, thank you for asking. And there's definitely there's other books. There's another, that is. I have one that's been very strong, and this weekend has been like, just start to write me a bit. You can do other stuff, but just start. So there's another novel, but that'll be probably a couple years in the making.
Oh, cool. I'm excited. I would love to read more books. But until then, I'll just reread the Gaia Codex a couple more times. Has there been a person on your life journey or on the journey of writing the book who helped you and shaped you as a writer?
I think the credit page in the book is like 10 pages of thank yous or acknowledgments in the book itself. So many people, so many wonderful souls that have really been part of the tapestry of this. And when I wrote the acknowledgement page, I really wanted, because sometimes it would just be a conversation for an hour or something with somebody, or a meeting that was profound. And I feel that everyone, like you and I talking here, this will be part of what inspires me and part of what, gives me light and inspiration and hope. And there's truly, and it's not to dodge the question, there's been so many. And, I was lucky to have wonderful mentors when I was younger. Lucky to have wonderful sisters right now who really teach me about sisterhood, and I have a partner I love very much. Learn about love. And I've had, as I mentioned, I think in the beginning of the book, there's been some spiritual mentors, particularly Rinpoche Sewang and Lama Pema Tenzin, Amma, who have really helped me remember in an experiential way my ancient wisdom.
Wonderful. What I also love about the book is something that you've just described. I feel like the protagonist gets so much help from so many different people, and she is being guided to so many places and to different soul families on the earth, and it's really interesting how it really does take a village. And you describing the creation of the book, how so many people were involved, and it was guided through so many different souls. And the same is something that I saw in the book. It was really interesting how the theme of sisterhood came up over and over again, and how she was adopted into so many, I call them families, because it was always like this big web of people who knew each other, but might have come from different cultures or different backgrounds. And something that stuck with me, and I think I know it by heart, it's a section from the book, and it says, a priestess, let me look it up, because I love this. I don't know it by heart, but I just want to reference that just now, because whenever somebody asks me what a priestess is, sometimes I say just that, because it's so... A priestess is initiated over many lifetimes. She walks in all cultures. She wears the skins of many races. And I loved that section. I loved it. And I feel like something that we all have in common is that we like to travel. And I feel like the more I evolve and the more I come home, the more at home I feel wherever I am.
Yeah.
And I have this Post-it note on my wall right next to my desk, and it says, I love everyone and everyone loves me. And it really is true. It is so true.
Yeah, I'm getting shivers as you're saying that. And I think so much of my learning too, when I was 18, 19, 20, I traveled for about 2.5, 3 years. I took time off from university and just was traveling, and I felt similar to Lila Sophia. I was traveling by myself many times, but I met so many amazing beings, and I'd be sitting on a little porch, in a small town with a family in Thailand, or I was up in Tibet, sitting with a lama, or I was down in Brazil, ended up living with this wonderful family down there, and it was very serendipitous. It was a mythic journey. And I felt like there was also, in retrospect, I laugh with my mom. I go, well, thank you for praying, because there was also many angels protecting me, It was very trusting.
I love that.
Yeah, it was so many wonderful experiences that came out of that.
I would love to close our conversation with one last question. What is the best advice you've ever received?
be true to your soul.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sarah. You can connect with Sarah on her website, GaiaCodex.com. And we're also going to include the links to her book so that you can purchase it. I'm also going to include some links from all the topics that we talked about today. And yeah, is there anything else you would like to share, Sarah, before we close?
Oh, I'm just so honored to be on your show with you, and I wish you just deeply auspicious luck. I'm seeing this beautiful message in all these interviews that you're doing, just going out to many, many souls, and I'm honored to meet you, and very happy to be part of that web and that pollination, so that there's just a beautiful depth and quality here, and I can just see that this is going to be a rich treasure trove over time, these interviews that will inspire many souls. And so I'm just very honored to be here and be with you.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for having been on the show. Everybody else, have a wonderful week, and don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes, leave us a review, let us know how you felt about this episode, and see you next time.